Welcome! In this video we will finally connect our frontend to our Sophia contract on the Eternity testnet. First we need to empty our meme array. Let's also create a variable for the meme length, since we won't be able to get the length property of our meme array anymore. Let's start here with 0. At the top we now add the address of the Sophia contract that we have deployed. This can be a constant variable since we won't change it through the code. Copy the contract address of the contract you created in our Sophia tutorial and paste it in here. I hope you had some memes registered in the tutorial, so we can already test our frontend with them. I will head back to the contract editor and call the getMemesLength function. You can see I had entered 2 memes in the last tutorial. Let's copy the contract address now and assign it to our constant contract address. Now let's also create a variable for our Sophia contract code, so we can interact with it. We will call it contract source. Let's go back to our contract editor, copy the whole code and paste it in our new variable. Let's also create a global variable which will hold our client. We will get later back to that. This is also empty in the beginning. Okay, now let's go to our function that we are executing when the page is loading. First, let's show our loader animation, so the user knows that something is happening and they should wait. Next, let's initialize our app object that we are going to use to interact with the blockchain. We will save this into a global client variable. At the moment, we actually don't have this AE object, but we will get it. The way dApps can be accessed on Eternity is through a dApp browser, which is inside the Eternity base app, for example. The base app is a web app. This is great because it can't be stopped by any censoring entities. This is a problem for native blockchain apps that can be censored by Apple and Google in the app stores. We can access the user's wallet if they allow it and make transactions to vote on memes, for example. But we need to load a JS library in order to get our AE object and its functionalities. Let's go to github.com and look for the Eternity JavaScript SDK called app.sdk.js. Under install SDK, we can see that we can import the SDK via the script tag. That's what we want to do. So we follow the link. We want to use the latest version of the SDK. So let's copy this line and paste it in our index.html file. Now we have included the Eternity SDK to our dApp. Now let's build the call to the testnet to get the length of our memes, so we can loop through them and display them all. First we are creating a variable for a new instance of the contract that we will use to interact with it. For that we need the code and the address of the contract, for which we have already created variables at the beginning of the code. Next we are creating a variable called get, which will hold the result of the promise of our client function contract call. If you are unfamiliar with promises, Google it. There are some pretty good resources in the first results. Basically, our code will just continue to be executed if we get a response from our call. The first argument we need is a contract function that we want to execute. In our case, getMemLength, and then its arguments, which is empty here since for this function we don't need any arguments. Right now we want to read from the blockchain and not write to it, so we can set callStatic true. I hope you remember static function calls from our Sophia contract tutorial. If we catch any errors, we will display them in the console. You could add a functionality to display them to the user too. We will also display called get in our console, but this will be very cryptic since the code needs to be decoded. So we need another constant that holds the result of a second call that can decode the data that we got in our first call. Again we will display an error and finally also log the decoded result to the console. So in our console we should now see the meme length. And let's hide the loader after we are finished. Okay, now let's test this. So if you're new to GitHub, you need to make yourself an account. Let's create a new repository, call it meme voting or something that makes sense to you. As I said before, this is a very beginner-friendly tutorial. Obviously, you can also do all of this through the command line if you like. Let's click on uploading existing file and now let's drop our files in here. We're going to need the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript file and the images. Now let's commit those files. I will write the uncreative commit description, initial commit for meme voting, and hit commit. Now to actually see our DApp, we can go to settings, and here under GitHub Pages, we can choose as source the master branch. Now under this URL we can access our DApp. This can sometimes take a while, but usually it's pretty fast. Now that we have hosted our DApp, let's test it in the Eternity Base app browser. So let's go to base.apps.com. Okay, in order for this to work on a computer, you need to be in the developer mode and simulate a mobile view. Now go to settings and disable cache while DevTools is open. So we can test easier and don't get any issues with not seeing our changes because the previous version had been cached. Let's reload the page, and now you can create a new account or use the one you have. I will create a new account in a very insecure manner you shouldn't do. This is just a test account, so save your seed phrase somewhere where you can access it easily. Create a simple password, you will use it a lot, and let's get us some eons for the testnet. So we copy our address, and now under testnet.faucet.apps.com we can enter it and get us some token. Now we need to change the network to the testnet. We can do this in the settings here. And here are 5 AE token in our account. Great. Now click on apps and enter the URL of your DApp. We have to authorize this DApp first, and great, our loading animation works and we get the result. Perfect. There are some errors of our library, but this doesn't concern us at the moment. We can now interact with our contract. In the next video, we will finalize our frontend, display the memes, and enable the voting and registration functionality.